Now, in his budget this week, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, is promising to step up investment in carbon capture technology, often seen as one of the most effective ways of achieving net zero. But one of the main sources of CO2 in the UK is the country's old and leaky housing stock, which means UK households consume more energy than many of their continental European peers. One potential solution being touted for this is the construction of highly energy-efficient homes on production lines. Joining me now is Jordan Rosenhaus. He's founder and chief executive of the modular house builder TopHat's. Jordan, welcome to you. I mean, you're opening, I think, Europe's biggest modular housing factory. What's the start for production?
Well, good morning, Ian. It's a pleasure to be here. I know it's a very busy day. Start of production is next year, where it's going to be 650,000 feet, and it'll be producing up to 5,000 units a year.
And you're claiming, yeah, and it's a home an hour, basically. What's the typical cost?
Typical cost should be no more than a traditionally built house. Right now, we can compete with all the traditional house builders, and over time, our cost basis should go down. And as we've seen in construction, that's not the case elsewhere.
How difficult is it to get these houses onto to actually the locations where they're going to be based, given the UK's road network?
Not difficult at all. We haven't had an issue to date. We think that as long as you're within the guidelines, there shouldn't be an issue at all.
Right. And how much construction actually takes place on the site itself, and how much in the factory?
So we strive to do over 95% in the factory. So there should be very little time on site. When there is construction on site, things generally go wrong. So we do as much as we can in a controlled environment.
And are these properties for rent or for outright purchase?
We look to hit all tenures. So we could be for build to rent, social housing, private sale. We like to hit all aspects of the market.
And how typically energy efficient will these properties be compared with the existing housing stock in the UK?
Very energy efficient. So first, there's a lot less carbon in the build, in the actual build. And then to operate the houses, because we can control the tightness of the house with precision engineering in the factory, there's less leaky houses.
So how are the houses warmed, if you like, and powered?
Right now, we use air source heat pumps and all best practice standard stuff. But I think the key and the differentiator between TopHat and traditional is what happens once you're heating the house. So it takes a lot less energy to heat one of our homes versus a traditional house.
Well, this is it. And presumably because heat pumps come as standard, that is much more cheap, I presume, than retrofitting an existing home with a heat pump.
Absolutely, because when you retrofit a home with a heat pump, you still have the issue with the leaky insulation and the leaky house in general.
What about the building materials? How much CO2 are you taking out of the process there?
So we can build one TopHat home for 1/27th the carbon of a traditional brick and mortar home.
Wow, how do you do that?
We use timber frame, we use different kind of facades. Everywhere we can, we strip back on carbon.
So there's no use of bricks then, for example?
We don't use bricks. We use our own brick-like system that we've developed in-house.
Oh, so what are they made of?
They're made of a resin. It looks just like brick. You can do any kind of design that you like, any kind of vernacular. They perform just as well, even better. So that's a big way that we can cut back on carbon.
Now, prefabricated housing in this country has a bit of a patchy record, given the quality of the prefabs that were put up after the war. How will you overcome those perceptions?
Well, in general, manufacturing in all industries has gotten a lot better. So with housing, it's no different. If you use current manufacturer modern practices, you could get a lot of design variation, and you can get a lot more quality control. Definitely more than you can get on site, and much more so than you could have in the 50s prefab. And I think people are starting to recognize that.
OK, well, that's mentioned. We've got a budget coming up this Wednesday. What's top of your wish list from the Chancellor?
I think right now, with all the talk about energy, I think that we need to ask ourselves, why aren't we building homes that, rather than having to have an energy cap, why not build homes that actually have an energy surplus so that they can feed energy to the rest of the community? And I think we're right there being able to do it currently. And I think if with a little innovation and policy, we can get there.
All right, Jordan, good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.